Well, we are wrapping up the cold season, but winter does not want to let go. I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci. Joined with me, meteorologist Sean Sublette at the Richmond Times Dispatch. And Sean, I said, the cool season's over. Hasn't even felt all that cold, but as we go through this week and next week and even a week after, it looks like the winter that we really didn't have is trying to make up for lost time, at least in the temperature department.
It is certainly not going to give up without a fight. We're going to see, the whole weather pattern of the last 4 weeks begins to break down this week. And then, next week, which is what we're focusing in on, right? The week of March 13th, probably going to be the coldest all month, at least with respect to normal. I mean, we're getting to the time of year where our normal highs are in the upper 50s. So there are going to be several days next week we struggle to get out of the upper 40s or lower 50s. And we're really worried here that next week we're going to have a hard freeze. But whether or not we get much snow is still open for some debate. But it's just too early, Joe, as you know, to shut the window on the chance for snow yet.
Yeah, for as mild as a winter it's been, you would think you just want to kind of coast out, get your 60s, 70s, not even think about snow in March. But we are going to think about it. And the key word is think. And we don't want to, I know this winter we started snow search and you're wondering why are you guys still talking about snow? Until the chance is zero, we're going to talk about it. And I think when you look at relative to where we've been this winter, next week and the week after could be our best chance for snow. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. It probably won't happen, especially in North Carolina down by you, Sean, but at least the window is there and it's bigger than it was for most of the winter.
So I think you're right, because we're going to be in a period for the first time since December that is consistently cold, at least near or below normal, if not significantly below normal. And that's what we're really all about here at Snow Search, is looking for the general trends hosted by you and me. So let's jump right into it, shall we? I mean, as we look at where we've been so far, the activity has been in the western U.S. We've probably seen the pictures out there of the phenomenal snow they've had in the Sierra Nevada range. Just an epic winter they've had there. The cold air, the precipitation has largely been in the western U.S., and there has been snow as far south as Tucson, Arizona, 29 Palms, California, which is in the desert, on the coastline, Eureka, California, and of course, even in Texas, they've had more snow than they've had here in Richmond, Virginia, getting a little bit more than an inch. This all ties back to the teleconnections. These things are so important in the medium and quasi longer range forecasting. So take us through some of these, Joe.
Yeah, so right now we're looking at the MJO. So here's another thing of word soup for you when it comes to our teleconnections that we look at. The MJO really corresponds to thunderstorm activity, kind of around Australia, the Philippines, Indonesia, along the equator. Really what we all just want to tell you here is if you look at this map, and you look at those left charts, so you see those oranges and blues, there's a couple different phases that the East Coast is blue. One of them is phase 8. That's on the bottom, just on that second column there on the left. And you see those blues on the East Coast. Not only does phase 8 support cold air, but it does support stormier conditions as well. So if you're an East Coast snow lover, when you get an MJO of phase 8, that's a good sign. And we have not seen that much this winter. Now we go to our indexes that we talk about every week here. The NAO, North Atlantic Oscillations, one of them. We're going to be neutral as we go into next week. So in short, equal chances for, cold and snow. We go to the Arctic Oscillation, the AO. Neutral again, equal chances for cold and snow here. Now, if you remember last week, we were talking about this week, the week of March 6th, the AO and the NAO were both negative. But the thing was the PNA, the Pacific North American Index, was also negative, and that keeps that cold air on the West Coast. Well, watch what happens as we go to the PNA. We're now going to be towards neutral, equal chances for that cold to be in the eastern U.S. So, again, I'm not saying this is all screaming big cold and snow for us to end winter, Sean. Now, don't get me wrong, but I think out of all the weeks we have been doing Snow Search, this is the first time where at least all three phases are kind of in the snow and cold game, kind of. And that's why, we're talking about this a little bit. Now, I will take you to this weekend here. I know it's not really in our snow search time, but it is this Saturday here. We do have a storm system that's going to move through. And, if you're in Pennsylvania, if you're in the mountains of Maryland here, well, you're going to see some snow as we go into Friday night and Saturday here with this storm system. It's going to be a coastal storm. There will be a lot of wind, coastal flooding if you're along the shore like I am here. But for you, Sean, in Richmond, North Carolina, it's pretty much just rain that passes through. But again, in Pennsylvania, in northern Maryland, we are talking about some snow, accumulating snow that you might even need to snow plow for. Let's say 2 to 4 inches of snow. But for most of our area, we're talking Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina. It's either going to be plain rain or you're going to see nothing here. Now, Sean, I'll take it back over to you here. Let's talk about what we're expecting with our temps as we go into next week.
Yeah, because this kind of sets us up for this bookend of storms over the weekend. There's that first one Saturday. There's another little system Sunday, and then into Monday. Once that pushes out, that really unleashes probably the coldest air of the month with respect to normal, and the temperature outlook from our colleagues at the Climate Prediction Center. So this is for next week, the 14th to the 20th of March, and it's all kind of relatively weighted. In other words, the chances for cold or the pattern favors cold, or at least below normal for most locations east of the Front Range of the Rockies. And that's why we think next week we are going to see temperatures struggling to get out of the 40s for a couple of days, not just in Virginia, but probably even into northern Alabama, Georgia. And certainly you're gonna be spending some nights in the 20s, I think, next week there in New Jersey.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I already got 20s in the forecast for this week, and next week the same thing too. That cold is a little more favored in Virginia and in North Carolina than it is, up by me. But I think we might all be the same temperatures, right? You're a little bit milder, of course, being a little further south. I'm a little bit cooler, so it might all balance out. We might all be maybe mid to the upper 40s. If we're the same
temperature as you, that means we're below normal.
Yes.
That's not something I'm normally very fond of, unless it's July or August.
Right. Yeah, there you go. And average highs, for, I'll do my area, Pennsylvania and New Jersey. We're talking about during this time, we're in the low to mid 50s, like 50 to 55 degrees. What about, Virginia in general? I know the mountains are going to be colder, but in general.
Our normals are running 54 to 58 during the day.
Right.
So if we're 10 degrees below normal, it gets everybody's attention in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into the upper level pattern. We showed this many times here. Upper level pattern, if you're forecasting, this is where you start. You start high and you work your way low. So what are we looking at? This is March 12th. So we're talking about next Sunday here. You see that big L over in New England. That's that storm system Sean and I were just talking about over the weekend here. Notice, though, that H, that ridge of high pressure, it's out in the west. I don't know if I've seen this in like 2 months, Sean.
Not much.
Yeah, not much of this. Usually the ridge has been in the southeastern United States, which has kept us warmer and drier, but it's out towards the west. So you're in the game. You're in that snow and cold game. That doesn't mean we're winning it, but we're at least in the game. We go towards the 15th here. Another storm system is going to probably dive in from the Midwest into the South area. Could be the Mid-Atlantic, but it's going to go offshore, turn into some kind of coastal system. And then after the 15th, that ridge of high pressure ends up reverting back to the southeast, which we've been accustomed to. Mm-hmm. And we'll say this as well, after next weekend. So we're talking about like March 20th, that ridge gets out of there again, and there's another opportunity for a storm that lines up with the cold. But, snow search, we like to keep it to just the following week, but we are, we do a little extra credit. We'll look even further ahead.
I think your point is very well taken, Joe, is that as we look through March, we might not have an epically cold March, but we're going to have a March that is a lot more consistently cold than what we've become accustomed to these last 4 to 8 weeks since the first of the year. And I think many of us have kind of acclimated to this relatively warm start to the year, and it's going to be quite the shock to the system that we have more than just a day or two that's kind of chilly, that this is going to kind of go on for a while, for sure.
Yeah. let's get to one of our maps that we made here. This is for the March 13th, 14th storm system here. Could go into the 15th as well. But, in terms of what I have on this map, if you're in the green, that's going to be Richmond, Raleigh, what is it called, Sean? That triangle? What do you call that? The research triangle area?
You got to be careful. The triangle is Raleigh-Durham because that's based on the Research Triangle Park.
Yes.
A huge research facility. But then you go 50 miles to the west of there. That's the Triad, which is Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem. So you got to be careful. They're Triangle and Triad. They're close, but separate.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and thankfully we have some, my southern friend here, Sean, helping me out with the geography. But, rain with accumulating snow is a definite possibility, if not even likely, for the foothills and the mountains of North Carolina, getting into Virginia. That could include Roanoke as well. But Richmond, Raleigh, Greensboro, plain rain for you here. Now, where it gets interesting is what happens up in my neck of the woods, up in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, even Northern Virginia. First, the storm has to get there. If it does get there, there will be a good amount of cold air around. So some snow would be likely here. So if you're me, here's what I'm thinking. Let's just wait it out a couple of days. You can always go to pressofac.com/weather for the latest South Jersey forecast. But regardless, it's something just to keep an eye on. But I think in those western areas, that's where snow does look more likely. And don't be surprised, Sean, if you're in, Nashville, Tennessee or St. Louis, Missouri, I mean, they even have a better shot of seeing snow, from this, as well as it dives out of, the northern part of the United States here. So let's wrap it on up here with some of our notes. Sean, you want to take it away on this one?
Yeah, the cold really does get top billing over these next, let's say, 4 to 14 days or so. But I think really the core of it coming next week. The Saturday storm, very iffy. But the one that you just talked about, kind of that bookend, Sunday, Monday, maybe Tuesday going farther to the north, that's the storm I think is a little more interesting because the track is going to be so critical. We think there's going to be sufficient cold air finally. But, there's some of the guidance that suggests the storm will be too far south. Then we miss out entirely. So that's the one to keep it in the back of your head for Monday for sure. But yeah, Joe, winter just isn't over yet.
No, it's not. We're still, like we said at the top, as mild as it's been. January, February, March wants to kind of make up for lost time, at least in the temperature department. We'll see what happens in the snow department. All right, Sean, what is the one thing you have been searching for, weather or otherwise, over the past week?
One of the things that we're looking for, searching for, at least weather-wise, is the hard freeze possibly next week. A lot of things have already started blooming here. The daffodils have been blooming for more than a week here. I see the Bradford pear trees, which everybody kind of has a love-hate relationship here with because they smell terrible, but they look pretty. They're blooming. So, my other worry is for fruit trees. I'm not sure how the peaches are coming along, but that's what we're really keeping an eye on for next week as to how cold it's going to get and how much of a threat that's going to be to agriculture.
All right, you're keeping it in the weather department, Sean.
I am, because I'm a weather geek. That's what I do.
And that's quite all right. And I could say some things. We are searching for some precipitation in our corner of New Jersey, but I got to go back to my Rutgers men's basketball team. I was there on Sunday night at the rack, which was on fire at a time. We actually had a fire in the rack. Smoke was there, but we took care of it. And the team was not on fire. They are limping into the tournament or the NIT. I'm not sure right now, but a nice win on Thursday against Michigan would be great for all of our Rutgers fans near and far. So that's what I'm searching for, Sean.
Oh, good then. Best of luck, because you know Penn State, we're a football school. it's been that way for a very long time.
Well, here's the thing. One of my Penn State buddies, he was giving me a hard time during the Rutgers Penn State basketball game last week, saying, "Oh, Penn State's so great. They're so great." And then when Rutgers came back by 19 points and won, Sean, then he said, Penn State's it's a football school. It's not a basketball school.
Look, I very much respect all the Penn State basketball teams that have come through over the years. They work hard, but man. Just you say Penn State basketball does not come into your head. It just doesn't. And I don't know what it's going to take to ever change that.
I don't know. Isn't
That's
the volleyball
another conversation for another time?
Yeah, we can get into a sports maybe after the season's over. We'll get into that. But we'll wrap it up for this week's Snow Search. We'll have another one for you next week because I think we're going to need it. And then we'll see what happens after that. But for meteorologist Sean Sublette at the Richmond Times Dispatch, I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci at the Press of Atlantic City. And thank you again for watching Snow Search.